Hey everybody, it's Romania Black. Oh my god, we're on episode 19 of Yona of the Dawn. Has this become my new comfort anime? I think it might, because the last two episodes have been so good. I've fallen in love with the Green Dragon. It's over. Y'all foresaw it. You knew it. As soon as I started watching the show, everybody was like, wait, Romania, until you get to the Green Dragon. And I was like, why do y'all keep hyping him up? Don't you like the other ones? And y'all do, but you guys are like Nostradamus. You just saw it coming. The prophecies were fulfilled, and here we are. So it is cold outside, but I've got coffee. I am ready to warm up with some Yona. And so our dear girl, she is trying to do the right thing and make right, and make right what her father had made wrong in being the king. And she's gotten old Captain Geegan on board, but Captain Geegan thinks that Yona is the weakest link amongst all of this crew. And so she's given her a test, and we're going to see what this test is to prove her trust and her worth. I'm very curious to know what's going to go down in this episode. But yeah, so far this has been wonderful. I really like the Green Dragon, his mentality about the whole mythology behind the dragons, everything. His relationship with Hak, his relationship with Keecha. It's great. He's not really interacted with our boy Blue, but I feel like it's going to happen. I feel like Jae-Ha is more associated with Keecha and Hak. Like, they all share a brain cell. And poor Sheena is like over here like, I'm just innocent. So in all of this. But in any case, I'm really excited to figure out what all goes down this episode. I can't believe we're on episode 19. 19. We only have like 5 more episodes of this series left. But then luckily we're going to start the manga after that. So it'll be even better. We can transfer onto the manga. It'll be great. I just read volume 4 a little while ago. I've only spent a couple days since I've watched episode 18 because I couldn't wait. I was like, I need to watch episode 19. I could not hold back. I usually wait a solid week in between Yona of the Dawn episodes just because I'm busy with other things. But after watching some really traumatic stuff on the other shows that I'm watching, I'm like, I need some comfort, and this show is doing it right now. Between Attack on Titan, Link Click, and The Untamed, I need some comfort, and this show is giving it. So that's what we're going with tonight. So I hope y'all enjoy, but let's not waste any more time. I'm so intrigued to find out what all our girl has to do. So with that being said, we are going to start Yona of the Dawn, episode 19, here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. Y'all gotta warn me when we're gonna have scenes like the honey scene. Y'all gotta warn me for that. I wasn't ready. Was not ready. I was like, I know what's gonna be the thumbnail. Oh, Hak, you long-suffering boy. I'm really gonna like the manga, aren't I? I feel like I'm really gonna like the manga, but our boy Hak, dude, where are all the Hawks husbando material? It's funny that scene happened because as he was pouring the honey, I was thinking in my head, I was like, I have heard my grandmother talk about this, because I remember I would get splinters as a kid. Like, she had like a pool with a wooden deck and I'd get splinters. And then I remember there was a time where she was like, oh, you can use honey to get the splinter out. And so as he was pouring it, I was in my head thinking, yeah, and I was about to comment on it, and about the time I was going to comment on it is when he started licking it off her hand, and I was like, oh, you're not going to ruin the moment. So, this episode, I love Yona. She's so good, and I love her as a protagonist because she's grown so much over the course of this series so far, but it's been very natural. It's not that forced protagonist growth that you see sometimes in shows where they go through a growth arc and it just happens, and there's not really, because she's still scared. She's still like on top of that cliff. Girl has way more guts than I do. I wouldn't have even been able to get like 3 feet on that ledge. I would have either fallen or been like, nope, time to go back. I couldn't have done it. Like I said, I'm scared of heights only if I know I'm not safe, and that's the epitome of that. So I'd be like, no. So I totally get it. And I like that ledge scene for the fact that they treat it very realistically. Like, in a lot of shows, you just see people like edging along the side of a cliff and you're like, seems like it's not that hard. But here there's the wind blowing, like her legs are shaking. Like, they did everything they could to make it feel as tense and unsettling as possible. And it was a very effective scene. And it takes up a good chunk of the episode. But there's so much good stuff in this episode with Jae-Ha. I like Jae-Ha a lot. He's great. And we're getting more into his psyche and more into his personality. But I want to talk about Jae-Ha, I want to talk about Hak, and I want to talk about Yona. Because this episode is kind of focused on all three of them. And there are some comparisons there to Keecha. I talked in the last episode about what I thought Jae-Ha's situation was growing up. And it seems like it's more along the lines of Sheena's. I'll never get his name right, so I'm just going to call him Sheena. I'm sure I'm saying it wrong. Y'all have told me 1,000 times how to pronounce it, and I'm like, I know I'm going to get it wrong, so I call him Blue. But yeah, Sheena. I feel like it's more like Sheena, actually, than it is. It seems like it's a combination of both Keecha and Sheena's villages, is the one that Jae-Ha's from, which is interesting. So we need to talk about this episode, because I want to talk about them. But Yona, just the progression this girl has made throughout the course of this series, it's so good. And she's still scared, and she's not like flipped a switch and become a badass in 5 episodes. She's still Yona. But at the same time, she realizes that she wants to protect her friends. And I like that she uses that as motivation. She's like, well, what if we were in a do or die situation and I needed to get this plant to save their lives? Then I would do it without question. So I just have to treat this like it's a do or die scenario and trick my body into fight or flight syndrome and just fight it out, and then I'll be fine. And I love that. I love that she's applying like a real world application, like a psychological thing to it. That's really, really good. I love that. And just, it's so good. But yeah, Jae-Ha, he's grown on me so much. I absolutely love him in this. So yeah, going to get past the OP here. So we're going, this pirate battle is going into, next episode 20. We only have 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. We got 5. Okay, we got 5 episodes left. I thought we only had 5, but it's 5 after this one. So we still have 5 episodes left. So, I mean, I guess the next episode could be the battle, but that only leaves us 4 episodes to find the yellow dragon, and then they're going to cut it off, right? God, no wonder you guys want me to read the manga. Because I'm like, you can't just end it there. How dare they? And they've not made a second season? Tragedy. Tragedy upon tragedies. This show is too good. It's too good not to have a second season. Get on this. Just give it to Mappa. Let them do it. Let them animate Hawk. I'll be all here for it. Let me tell you. But yeah, so we're leading up to this battle against the pirates. Well, against Kumji. And getting ready for it. And 7 ships versus their 1. The odds are not in their favor, but I mean, the thing is they've got 3 dragons and Hawk. But the thing of that is 3 dragons and Hak and Yona, they are going to draw so much attention to themselves. And at that point, so thinking ahead, I do want to go over this episode, analyze it, but thinking ahead, if they attack Kumji and they win, then that is going to tell Gunti and Suwon and be like, so the kingdom's under attack by guess who? The supposed murderers of the former king that you've spread the rumor about, that they killed the former king. Well, they're attacking the Earth Tribe's leader now. They're doing an attack on their people. The pirates are. So, and it's very convenient that she wants to disband after this. I mean, I get it. But it is a little bit of a plot convenience to be like, well, after this last mission, I'm going to disband. And I'm like, okay. But that would be a way to get her and the other guys safe from Suwon, and then all of his efforts, Suwon is going to be focused. And then Suwon's going to figure out that Yona's probably still alive, and then Hawk's still alive, and how are we going to deal with that? That's going to be interesting. And the fact that they might have 3 dragons, 3 of the 4. So, don't spoil me, but that does make me curious how we're going to run into the final dragon in our 12th hour before the series ends, and then pick up from the manga. That's going to be interesting. But yeah, so... But before we get to any of that, Yona has to pass this test. And it's to get this herb that's on a cliffside that's very, very dangerous. And all the pirates think this is a very dangerous mission. And the only there's like one person that can get it, and they're injured. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. She not only gets to test Yona, but she also gets to get the plant that she needs to heal the one guy. So... interesting. And I like that Jae-Ha is immediately like, she's not going to be able to do that. That's impossible. No way. It's interesting because you think Jae-Ha would be able to go get it, but he makes the comment that he can't get along the ledge. Although, he does manage to jump around when he thinks that she's in danger. So, clearly he is, do or die, he can do it. But interesting. I wonder if he was just saying he couldn't get along the cliff to make her go over there or what. We're going to talk about this. But yeah, so I like that Yona's instantly like, yep, I'm going to do this. And I like that in the forefront, Yoon and Kija are instantly like, nope, don't like this plan. Yoon doesn't. I love how far Yoon has come too. Yoon has come a long way from Yoon being like, I don't like nobility, I don't like princesses, to be the first one to speak out against her going to do this. Like, that's such character growth, and it's very subtle, but you notice it that Yoon has grown and he's really come to like Yona, and he doesn't have dragon's blood, so Yoon likes Yona just because. That's a big thing too. And Hak likes Yona just because. And Jae-Ha talks to him about that. And we'll get to that conversation later. But I like how much Yoon has grown, and you just see how much compassion he has for Yona now. And he's like, no, don't do it. And then of course Kija's like instant big bro, like, no, don't do it. I feel like it's odd because Jae-Ha's the oldest. Jae-Ha's 25. So he's the oldest of all of them. And then Kija is 20, and then Sheena is 18 or 19, so he's the youngest of the three so far. And I'm going to be assuming, just by appearances alone, I'm going to estimate that the golden yellow dragon is like the youngest out of all of them. Could be wrong. He could be the oldest for all we know. But I'm going to guess he's the youngest. Don't spoil me. It'll be fun to figure out if he's actually as youthful as he appears in the OP. But I like that Kija is instantly like, it's funny. Kija kind of gives me a younger brother vibe. Kija gives me a younger brother vibe, even though he's older, but he's like the protective younger brother. He's like the younger brother that wants to be like the protective, supportive younger brother. That's what he reminds me of. Jae-Ha definitely has older brother vibes, for sure. Or only child vibes. And then Sheena has like younger brother vibes, for sure. But anyway, I like that Kija and Yoon are instantly like, no, Yona, you're going to get hurt. We can't let you do this. And Hak stands back. He clearly doesn't like it. But Hak is like, it's funny because Hak is living up to his word that he said to Kija way back episodes ago, back when they were about to find Blue. When Yona was practicing archery in the forest, Kija stumbled upon her practicing. And back then, Hak made the comment to Kija that he liked seeing her struggle. He liked seeing her be human and make human decisions and have to fight for something. Like, he said he liked that about her. And so, of course, if he's not going to be a hypocrite, he, is like, yeah, sure, she made this choice. She's going to do it. She wants to prove that she's strong. Yep. And you can tell it's probably killing him that she's putting herself in this dangerous situation, but he said he wanted her to struggle. And so this is like case in point, right? So I do like that consistency in this story, that Hak is being consistent with his character. And has that resolve. She's like, this is my job. And then you get that shot of Hak looking at her like, okay, she's made this choice. And I like that you have opposite ends. You have Gigan and Yona in the center, and on opposite ends of the spectrum, you have Jae-Ha looking at her and you have Hak looking at her. And it's like they're both on diagonal from each other, because they are kind of like diagonal from each other, in terms of this series. It's interesting. So yeah, Jae-Ha takes her to the cliff and everything. It's terrifying. I hate it. It's very, very scary. And so then from there, we get her like trying to reason with herself. She's like, she's gave me this job and she knows how small I am, so I can do this. And then, yeah, the wind happens. It's terrifying. And I love the imagery. That shot of her looking down is actually very scary. Like, she just looks so freaked out. And I love the imagery, the symbolism of the thorns, the rose and thorns coming up out of the ground and wrapping itself around her. And she has like a freak out moment. She like reverts back to like episode 3 Yona, where she's like, I don't want to be here. I'm afraid. Help me. Like, it's a very human response. It's very natural. Like, of course, in that moment, you would feel freaked out, and it makes sense to do that. But I like that Al the squirrel, because it's a squirrel, doesn't recognize me, that, and he just like touches her ear and he's like, hey, you okay over there? Calm down. And then that's when Jae-Ha, he's like, the wind isn't that strong. And then he's just noting how frail she is. And then we get to this flashback of Jae-Ha's past. And this is so cool. But my predecessor told me. So this is the interesting part. So we get to see what Jae-Ha, what his past looked like with the predecessor. Okay? and the predecessor has the long flowing green hair, kind of like all these formers, with the exception of Kija's village. All the Ao and this former green dragon have the long flowing hair, right? And Jae-Ha's grown his hair out too, but it's in a nice neat little ponytail, and he has a little tiny ponytail as a kid. It's adorable. Like, he's just such a grumpy looking kid. It's cute. But they're in a tower, it looks like a cave, and there's like little food and chopsticks there and drink and everything, but he's chained to the wall. It's like, So it's even worse than Ao, really, because it sounds like he's just been chained up there and imprisoned until the king shows up to get him. And they've unchained, I'm sure, the predecessor, because the predecessor no longer has the powers. So that's fascinating, because it's sort of like you have Kija, who all three of the villages are, in a sense, a prison for the dragon, keeping them there. Kija's is the prettiest of the prisons. Like, it's the least like a prison, because Kija can freely move around everywhere, and everyone's so indoctrinated into the mythology that they don't even treat it like a prison. They're just like, no, this is our village. But if you think about it, Kija wasn't allowed to leave the village, and when people showed up, they either assimilated into the village, or they weren't allowed to leave, or they were killed. So it kind of is a prison. Like, it's just, once it's Hotel California, you can come anytime you like, but you can never leave, sort of thing. And so Kija's is the most loosely based example of it. Then you have Ao and Sheena, who are in the village, and it was a prison, basically. They kept him with the mask on. They didn't socially interact with him. They were afraid of him, but they kept him in the village. But they let Ao and Sheena move around freely, mainly because they wanted them to protect them. The village wanted their protection. But Sheena still got to move around freely as a kid. Like, you saw him going up to the other kids where he had the top and he gathered the toy. Like, he was able to move around with Ao. Like, they were able to freely move about the village, even though they were kind of shunned and socially, removed. And then this is like an interesting combination of the two, because you have Jae-Ha getting the mythology from the predecessor, learning about this absolute devotion to King Hiryu that was etched into the blood of the four dragons, as he says. So you have someone that, like Kija, is getting mentored by the predecessor, but like Ao and Sheena, they're kind of viewed as like a curse by the village. But this is almost worse. Like, he doesn't even get to go anywhere. He's just trapped in this little cell. Like, he just has to wait out his days until either another dragon is born or the king comes and gets him. So it's kind of worse, and it makes so much sense now why Jae-Ha wants to be free. He wants to be free and keep his freedom because he spent his whole childhood chained up in a cell without any freedom. So that all makes sense. Makes total sense why he's like that. I love it. And I love the little kid version of him. He's like, I wondered what sort of man would come. And he guessed it would be a conceited man, one who would use force to command the dragons. Like, you see his little pouty face? Like, he's like, it's going to be some gross guy come and get us. Which makes sense that he's like, and I love that transition from him as a little pouty kid to him as like the handsome man. But the one sitting here is a weak girl without any special strength. But she is strong. And Jae-Ha realizes that by the end of this, which I love. I also love that we find out that he has that very fan servicey little cloak thing that's tied underneath his robe, so that it has the little under thing. Fashionable. Jae-Ha's fashionable. Fashionably so. And then we have the whole thing where he's like, is she really the four dragons master? Is she really the one who's going to lead all of us? Right? And there's this moment where she keeps wanting to move forward, and he's like, no one's forcing you to do this. He's like, you don't need to put yourself in danger. You don't have to do this. And then inside his head, he's thinking, that's right. Come back. And there's a really cool, the colors in this scene are like the green mixed with the red, and it's really like sickly. And there's a part of you that thinks, okay, is this really Jae-Ha wanting her to come back? Or is it the dragon's blood recognizing that she's in danger and wanting to protect her? And so internally he's like, come back over here. Not because it's Jae-Ha thinking it, but because the dragon blood wants her to be safe. Interesting. And yeah, the whole come back thing. It's so good. That's such a good scene. I love it. And then I love when she turns back And he calls her Yona. And at first he just says Yona, and then he adopts Yona-chan, which is like, mm-hmm. And he's like, and she's like, it's okay. And he's like, it isn't okay. And she's like, I have to do this simple job. And he's like, it isn't simple. And then she talks about not wanting to let anybody down. And she talks about how she would protect them and everything, and how his voice is reassuring. She's like, I'm really glad that you're here with me. She's like, your voice is reassuring. I wonder why. And it's like, it's the dragons and the blood. So there's this interesting dynamic going on where part of it is the blood of the dragon, wanting the dragons to protect her and her connecting with him on that level. But then there's also that they're developing a friendship. So there's something along with it. That it's not just the blood of the dragons. There's something else to it as well. It's more human and more just them building a connection with one another, which I think is really, really neat. And Yona's saying that she would go in the middle of a battlefield with arrows raining down to protect her friends. I'm like, oh, girl. And she's like, when I think of it that way, I can go anywhere. And she does it despite her legs trembling. I love it. I absolutely love it. And then he's like, why? Are you just afraid of losing someone? And she's like, yeah, I'm afraid of losing people I care about. And I'm afraid of people. Like, she's seen death just not only with her family, but with other civilians and citizens of the kingdom that she's supposed to rule. So yeah, she doesn't want anybody else to die. Like, she's just that compassionate. That's her desire, not to lose anybody. And then he makes note that she's acting for the people of Awa who are terrified of Kumji. And he's like, she reminds me of some idiots I know. Like the pirates, right? I love it. And then he's like, I can't watch this anymore. He just wants to save her. It's great. And then she questions why he's still here. And he's like, oh, well, you know, I'm just keeping an eye on you. And it's his leg. And he looks down at his legs propelling him forward because it's the legs of the dragon, right? And she thanks him. And then that little blush, she's like, oh, you know, okay. You don't have to thank me. It's just so you know, I'm not going to help you. But yeah, then she talks about the voice reassuring. And he's like, it must be because of the dragon's blood flowing through my veins. That must be it. Sure, it's not that we're becoming friends. What else could it be? I love this. I love the subtle little developing friendship between the two of them. And he says the dragon's blood is a pain in the ass, but it's like, is it just that? Or is gaining friends is a pain in the ass too? And so then, yeah, and then the path is too narrow, but he manages to get there to save her. So, because, Jae-Ha's a gentleman like that. He couldn't let a lady just get in the sea. I love it. And I love that they just get close like this. Now, do I think that Jae-Ha is really romantically interested in Yona? No. I don't think that he is. Out of all three of them, I think he is the most interested in her, but I don't really think that he is. Sheena, I don't think is romantically interested at all with Yona. No. Kija, I think they're more like siblings. Like, there is something there, but I think it's more like a sibling bond. With Jae-Ha, it's the most romantic we've seen of the dragons possibly being with her. But one, she's way too young for him. She's like 10 years younger than him, or 9 years younger than him. But also, I think that it's just more of like a big brother bond. But if somebody were romantically involved out of all the dragons, it would be him. But I don't think that it is. And I think it's not because of the conversation he has with Hak later. And then, yeah, Yona tied the root to her belt. Her hands are all cut with cuts and bruises from the thorns and everything. I thought of back in episode 6 or 7. It was episode 6. It reminded me when she was hanging onto the root with the thorns. It reminded me of the moment that her and Hak were like dangling off the edge of the cliff. That's what it reminded me of. And I was going to comment in the moment of the reaction about it, but then I forgot. So then, yeah. And then I love when Kija and Yoon see the cliff. And Kija's just like, he just faints into Sheena. He just faints. He's like, oh my God, it's too steep. And Yoon's like, oh no. Like, just freaking out. I absolutely love it. And then, yeah, they show her getting back. And I love that. So Sheena was never freaking out because he has excellent vision and he saw her coming back from afar. So as Yoon's freaking out, Sheena's like, no. I love how he just pats him. He's like, no, look. Like, he's very nonverbal. And that's when they see her coming up the cliff. And I love that Yoon hugs her and he's like, why did you make me all worried? It's so good. And she gets the root. And I love that she admits that she had help. She's like, I didn't really pass because Jae-Ha helped me. And he's like, we're not supposed to say anything. And then she offers to go back and get some. And I thought Gigan was going to comment about how, well, nobody can do a battle like this by themselves. Like, everybody has to work together, and that was the point. I thought she was going to say something like that. But she's like, no, you went back and you got the root. You got it and brought it back. You got guts, kid. You hurt yourself in the process. It's fine. She's like, I like kids with guts like you. And she's like, I would have been mad if Jae-Ha had left you in the sea. And I love that he says, wow, scary. That's why I love you, Captain. See, I think Jae-Ha likes older women, maybe. But yeah, I love it. Jae-Ha's great. And I like how Yoon makes the comment where he's like, well, Yona's a girl, so we need to protect her. And Gigan's like, I'm a pirate captain and I'm a girl, so I like that she kind of calls him out on that. It's really good. It's really good. But yeah, so then all these guys, like the pirate crew, instantly accepts Yona as one of their own. It's adorable. I love it. I love that they're all like the sweetest pirates. And Kija's like, don't touch her with your filthy hands. You'll make her dirty. I love it. I love that Kija, they're all like, what a cute girl. And Kija's like, don't touch her. And Hawk's like, there's too many men around this woman. And that our poor, long-suffering Hawk, this is where him and Jae-Ha have the conversation. And old Jae-Ha brings it out in Hawk. Our womanizer. Our man of love. Our man of amour that plays his beautiful instruments in the moonlight. He knows what's up. More so than Kija and Sheena. And that look where Hawk's just like, oh, thank God. And so that's the kind of expression she puts on your face. It's like, call him out. And he's like, you look 10 years older. What are you talking about? And I love it. Yeah, see, Jae-Ha's just like, has the mirror and he's like, oh my gosh, no, you. And then we have the guy that's on Suwon's council. He brings out the note card. That's interesting. He's like, she was so determined to keep going. I thought I'd lose years off my life. And I think that part of it is that maybe Hawk wasn't too worried because Jae-Ha was there, because he knew Jae-Ha would save her. Because Hawk knows from the village when they save the woman that Jae-Ha is the type of person that he's very much like Hawk in his sense of justice and saving someone, and that sense of loyalty and protection. That if worse came to worse, Jae-Ha would jump in the ocean and save Yona. So I think that could have been another reason why Hawk wasn't worried so much about it, because Jae-Ha was there. But then Jae-Ha's like, you're really interested. Or Hawk says that Jae-Ha is really interested in her. And Jae-Ha counters, well, I'm always interested in girls. And Hawk. He's interested in girls and Hawk. He's like, I've never met anyone like her. She's pure and stubborn, but unsteady on her feet. I'd consider her a huge pain in the ass. And while he's saying that, Kija's like, I am clean as the purest white, and the pirates all hate him. I love it. He's like, I can't understand why anyone would want to protect her. And he says that, but it's like, and then Hawk's like, well, I guess. And then Jae-Ha says she must really be important. And Hawk says, well, we're old friends. And everybody thinks that they're lovers at this point. Everybody. June thought they were lovers. Kija probably thought they were lovers. Jae-Ha definitely thinks that they're lovers. So it's like, who you fooling at this point? And Hawk's like, yeah, right. No, she's an important person left in my care. And he just has like the slyest face when he says that. Like the way his eyes get all crinkly. He has the slyest face. And Jae-Ha's like, left in your care, huh? And so this part here where he says, I get the impression you're very close, but there's some distance between you. Yeah, there definitely is. Because we've established up to this point that Hawk doesn't want to get too close to her because he has to protect her. And he knows she's a princess and she has a duty. And he's like, because Hawk is a perfect selfless being, he's like, I can't put my desires before her. And so he's like, Hawk loves her and wants to be with her. Like that, after this episode, I'm like, that's so apparent. But he's like, I can't do it because he's like, I have to protect her and I have a job to do. And if my desires are going to get in the way of that. And I'm like, can't you do both? Can't you be her lover and her protector? Damn it. So, but Jae-Ha's like, and then Jae-Ha tries to counter and says, well, maybe it's because you don't really want her. And he totally knows what he's doing. He's totally goading. He is totally goading Hak with that statement. Hak's like, huh? Like, mind your own business. He doesn't deny it. He's like, mind your own business. Why would you say that? And Jae-Ha's like, why indeed? Maybe it's because I'm interested in her. And that gets Hak's attention. And he's like, just kidding. And Hak's like, ugh. That was an interesting face you just made. I feel a bit rejuvenated. Like, nope, I'm not the one that has it bad. It's you. Yeah, Jae-Ha's like, yeah, the blood's forcing me to be near Yona, and we may be friends, but I don't have it nearly as bad as you do, boy. And it's like, yeah, because that's the one thing, like that little tiny instance of jealousy gets to Hak. Just a second. It's not really jealousy, but it's just like a fear that, and that's interesting because Hak claims that he was totally willing to let Yona marry Suwon, and that would be that. And he would protect her, and there'd be no qualms, and he would just be there. That would be the worst job, though. If Hak was their bodyguard and Suwon was married to Yona, that would be the worst, because Hak clearly loves her. And he'd have to sit there and watch them be happy together his whole life, like, and suffer in misery. Who would want to do that? But he seemed okay with it. And he kind of justifies it here by saying, oh, well, we were childhood friends. And I like that we get this moment of Hak just like wallowing. He's like, maybe, and then he repeats Jae-Ha's words, maybe it's because you really don't want her. And he's like, whatever, nah, that's not it. And he's like just pining. He's like, we've been like siblings. And it shows him and Suwon and Yona. We've been like siblings. I lived every day sworn to protect the kingdom. And then she envisions them together there and sees them together. He and the princess would rule together. And I love that transition of him like looking up at them, and he like looks fondly, and then it cuts to him like not happy, because it's like, were you really going to be okay with that? And I think that's what Jae-Ha's making him come to realize, is that he's not okay with that. And Jae-Ha, Suwon, there's a part of him maybe that thought Suwon was not going to get with Yona, and that it was just what he was thinking. But when Jae-Ha said, well, I'm interested in her, that's an unknown to Hak. And Jae-Ha is enough like Hak that he thinks that that might actually be a threat. I don't know. He's like, now the princess who is just trying to survive. The princess left in my care by King Il. So yeah, there's all these factors. He's like, Yona's not thinking about romance. She's just trying to survive and help be a queen to her people, or become somebody that could be a queen to her people. And King Il left me in charge to protect her. He's like, I don't have time to think about this stuff. Yeah, he's like, there's nothing more I could ask of her. He's like, I can't ask her to love me, because he's like, that's too much. And it's like, ugh. And then we have the scene where she has the splinters in her hand, and he tells her, like, well, why didn't you just get a hot needle? And she's like, why would you do that? And he's like, you don't know anything. And so I like that he just digs through Yoon's gear, and he's like, you won't care. It's an emergency. It's fine. And then the whole thing with the honey, and gosh. And then she says, do you think I've gotten stronger? Am I closer to you now? And what she means by that is that she wants to become strong enough. Here's the thing. Yona wants to become strong enough where she can free Hak, where he doesn't have to protect her, which would be a step in the right direction towards them being together, because if Hak didn't have to worry about protecting her, then there wouldn't be that barrier. It'd be one less hurdle for him to have to worry about. And so when she says, am I closer to you now? That brings him back to Jae-Ha's words, and there's the blush. He says, you're very close, but there's some distance between you. And then all of Jae-Ha's words come like right back to the forefront. He's like, shut up, droopy eyes. You're probably right. Up to now, I've suppressed the desire countless times. Countless times! Ever since she put that apple up on that stoop, it's been there. And he's used every excuse. Hak has used every excuse not to be with her. He's used Suwon as an excuse. He's used the kingdom as an excuse. He's used protecting her on behalf of King Il as an excuse. But slowly all those walls are crumbling down around him, because now Suwon's not in the picture. The kingdom's not in the picture. King Il, King Il, his whole loyalty to King Il is still there. That's like the main thing. But having to be strong for her, that's all crumbling down too. So all these walls are slowly starting to go down, and he's had to suppress these desires, and now it's going to be like, what if you don't have to suppress them? And that's where the honey comes in, and then he does the first thing he thinks of, and it's licking the honey off her hand, and she's like, oh my God, which girl, an accurate reaction, because she's like, that's enough. Because she's like probably thinking the same thing he is. And she runs away. And then he's like, I'm an idiot. He's like, I love it. The princess can live freely. Be satisfied with that, you idiot. Like, quit putting yourself as a burden onto her. I'm so ready for the manga. That's all I can say. I'm so ready. They better give us something with this. Hak and Yona are my endgame. That's all I want out of this series. If it ends with them together, I'll be happy. Even if they're like out with Iksu in a shack somewhere, I'll be happy as long as they're together. And so then, yeah, we have this moment between Gigan and Yona to round out the episode, and they talk about how everybody's grateful to her, and this whole thing about, I'm going to disband the pirates after this one last go around, and then I'm going to disband the people. And then what's going to happen with Jae-Ha? And Jae-Ha says he's going to be free. He's like, I'm not going to follow anybody. I'll just go to my next adventure. And I'm like, you're going to follow Yona. He says he'd follow her alone, but not with the other dragons. And I'm like, what difference would that make? None. I think he feels like if it was just him and Yona, then there wouldn't be like the mythology tied to it, like the prophecy. But if all three of them are together, then it's like one step closer to fulfilling this prophecy that he's, denounced for so long. And I love in the scene with the pirates, Kija is terrified, which I would be too. This fish and guts and stuff, it looks like crab and octopus and fish. It looks like a grisly combination. And Sheena's just like, screw it, I'm hungry and this looks great. Him and Ao are chowing down. But Kija looks absolutely repulsed. I love it. And then Yona's worried about Jae-Ha being alone. And Jae-Ha's like, I'll be fine. And she's like, no, you should come with us. So, yeah, he's definitely going to go with her. Absolutely. I have no doubt. And this episode was so good, I didn't even notice that the ED was going on during it until like a minute into it. And I was like, oh, yeah, the ED's playing. This episode's been a long episode. And then he says, I'll join you once you're a little older. And it's like, Yeah, and she's like, you're so mean. You're just like Hak. And she runs away. And he's like, interesting. And Hawk's like, we're not the same. And then even Gigan asks, you usually only sweet talk women. Are you interested in her? That's the thing. Like, he treats her differently than other women. And I like that Jae-Ha says, you must be joking. And I do think he's interested in following her, but I think it's an odd thing. I think of all the three dragons we've met so far, he would be the most likely to be romantically interested in her, but I still think he's not. So, or that's just me shipping her and Hak so hardly that I'm forcing the others out of the equation. Which I kind of ship Kija and Sheena together, so there's that, but... And I love that she just walks off pouting because she's still not over the thing with Hak. And that's when she knows Sheena. And I like that she notices him. I think of all the... Kija notices Sheena a lot, but then she does too. And I really like that. And he's like looking far ahead to see the ships coming into the harbor. 7 ships. Like they're all making a grand show of all this, which is interesting. And then they talk about, at the very end, that Kumji and them are trading with the Kai Empire. And here's the thing. The whole... business with Suwon visiting Gunti, it made it sound like that the Kai Empire, it's like, oh, we're just trading goods, we're just trading tea, it's all nonchalant and totally kosher. And then you find out that no, that's not the only thing getting traded. There's also human trafficking being involved. And that's when Yona's like, okay, you got me, I'm on board, let's stop this. And that's all the motivation we need. So yeah, I'm assuming the guy in the OP with the jewelry and everything is gonna be Kumji, so that's going to be exciting. We're getting our final, our big battle leading into the climax of this series, which we're on episode 20 next, so the battle could be, an episode or two long, and then the structure of this is going to be odd. It's weird because I've talked about this in previous reactions. the structure throws me off because the story doesn't end with episode 24. It's going to keep going with the manga. So I'll be curious to see what all we end up talking about in the actual episode itself. Or how the series ends, what all we cover before we move into the manga. That's going to be interesting. But y'all, I think this is the longest I've talked about an episode of Yona, and for good reason, because this episode was great. So yeah, I really loved this episode of Yona. I'm really excited for the last 5 episodes. I'm curious to see how we're going to meet the Yellow Dragon when we do. And I'm curious to see how this battle goes down, because it's 1 ship against 7, but we got 3 dragons. So, and we have Hak. So anything could happen, right? But I'm curious to know your thoughts down below. Please no spoilers, but I hope y'all enjoyed this reaction and this discussion. But next week's going to be a lot of fun, I have a feeling. So, in any case, I hope y'all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back next week with more Yona of the Dawn. Bye.